The Duke dismissed the governess his Heirs loved, not knowing they planned to leave with her.
I had reached the end of the stone driveway when I heard their footsteps behind me. Miss Pemberton, wait. I turned, my heart already breaking, knowing I should not look back. The Duke had made himself perfectly clear. I was dismissed. My services were no longer required. I was to leave Thornwood Manor immediately and never return. But when I saw them, those two small figures running toward me down the long gravel path, each carrying a hastily packed bag, I stopped breathing entirely. Lady Rosalind was 9 years old, her copper hair escaping from its braids, her face red with exertion and tears. Lord Felix was 7, his little legs pumping furiously to keep up with his sister, his expression set with the same stubborn determination I had come to know so well over the past 2 years. "What are you doing?" I dropped my own bag and ran toward them. "You cannot be here. Your father. We do not care about father." Rosalind's voice was fierce despite the tears streaming down her face. "We are coming with you. That is impossible. You are his children, his heirs. You cannot simply leave. He dismissed you." Felix's lower lip trembled, but he held my gaze with startling intensity. "He sent you away because Lady Ashworth told him lies, and he believed her instead of us. We told him the truth and he would not listen. So we are leaving too." Rosalind lifted her chin. "If he does not want you, then he does not want us either. Because we will not stay in a house where you are not welcome." I knelt before them, my eyes burning with tears I refused to shed. "My darlings, you do not understand. I am a governess. I have no home, no family, no resources. I cannot care for you the way you deserve to be cared for. You belong here, in your father's house, with your inheritance and your future. Our future was with you." Rosalind's voice cracked. "You were teaching us to be good people. You were teaching us to be kind and brave and honest. Father just wants us to be quiet and obedient and out of his way. That is not true." "It is true." Felix's small hand gripped mine. "He never reads to us. He never plays with us. He never asks about our lessons or our dreams or anything we care about. You did all of those things. You made us feel like we mattered. You do matter. You matter more than anything in the world. Then do not leave us." Rosalind threw her arms around my neck. "Please, Miss Pemberton. Please do not leave us with him." I held them both close, feeling their small bodies shake with sobs, and I knew with terrible certainty that I could not do what they were asking. But I also knew that I could not simply walk away. Behind us, I heard the heavy front doors of the manor bang open. The Duke's voice echoed across the grounds, sharp with fury. "Rosalind, Felix, get back here this instant." The children's arms tightened around me, and I made a decision that would change all of our lives forever. I had come to Thornwood Manor 2 years earlier, answering an advertisement for a governess that had seemed too good to be true. The salary was generous. The house was magnificent. The position promised complete authority over the children's education, with minimal interference from the household. For a woman of 23 with no family, no fortune, and no prospects beyond my education and my wits, it had seemed like a gift from heaven. The reality was more complicated. The Duke of Thornwood, Lord Christopher Blackwell, was a widower, still mourning the wife who had died giving birth to Felix 7 years earlier. He was not cruel, precisely, but he was absent. He spent his days locked in his study or traveling on business, leaving his children in the care of servants who changed with alarming frequency. I was the 5th governess in 3 years. The first had quit after 2 months, unable to handle Rosalind's tantrums. The second had been dismissed for drinking. The third had eloped with a footman. The fourth had simply disappeared one night, leaving no explanation. I was determined to be different. And I was. I stayed. Not because the position was easy, it was anything but because I fell in love with those children from the very first day. Rosalind was brilliant and fierce, with a mind that challenged me at every turn and a heart that was desperate for someone to see past her defenses. Felix was gentle and imaginative, creating elaborate fantasy worlds in which to hide from a reality that had taken his mother before he ever knew her. They were difficult because they were hurting. They acted out because no one had ever taught them another way. They pushed away every adult who came near them because every adult they had ever trusted had eventually left. I refused to leave. I weathered Rosalind's rages and Felix's silences. I sat with them through nightmares and held them through tears. I taught them not just reading and arithmetic but kindness and courage and the radical idea that they were worthy of love simply because they existed. And slowly, impossibly, they began to trust me. The trouble started with Lady Ashworth. She arrived at Thornwood Manor 6 months ago, a distant cousin of the Duke's late wife, claiming to be concerned about the children's welfare. She was beautiful, elegant, and utterly ruthless in ways I did not recognize until it was too late. She wanted to be the next Duchess. And I was in her way. Not romantically. I harbored no illusions about my place in the household or my relationship with the Duke, who barely acknowledged my existence. But the children loved me. They ran to me when they were upset. They quoted my lessons at dinner. They spoke of me constantly, in glowing terms that made Lady Ashworth's teeth clench. She wanted those children to love her. She wanted to present herself to the Duke as a natural mother figure, a woman who could fill the void his wife had left. And she could not do that while they were devoted to someone else. So she began her campaign. Small things at first. Comments to the Duke about my teaching methods being too progressive. Concerns about my influence on the children's behavior. Suggestions that perhaps a woman of better breeding would be more appropriate for shaping the future Duke and his sister. The Duke ignored her initially. He did not care enough about his children's education to have opinions about it. But Lady Ashworth was patient. She waited for her opportunity. And I gave it to her. It happened on a Tuesday afternoon. Felix had been struggling with his Latin translations for weeks, growing increasingly frustrated with a subject that felt meaningless to him. I had been searching for ways to make the material more engaging, and I had finally found one, a game I invented that turned conjugations into a treasure hunt around the manor grounds. The children loved it. They raced through the gardens, decoding clues, laughing with a joy I rarely saw in them anymore. Felix forgot his frustration entirely. Rosalind helped him with the difficult words, patient and encouraging in a way that made my heart swell with pride. And then Lady Ashworth found us. She appeared on the terrace with the Duke beside her, having apparently summoned him from his study to witness our impropriety. Her face was a mask of concern, her voice dripping with false sympathy. Your Grace, surely you see what I mean. The children running wild, their lessons abandoned, and Miss Pemberton nowhere to be found. I am right here, I said, stepping forward. And the children have not abandoned their lessons. This is their Latin exercise. I have developed a method that. Running through the mud is a Latin exercise. Lady Ashworth's laugh was brittle. Your Grace, this is exactly what I have been warning you about. Miss Pemberton has no understanding of proper educational methods. She is turning your children into savages. That is not true. Rosalind's voice rang out across the garden. Miss Pemberton is the best teacher we have ever had. She makes learning wonderful. She makes us want to learn. Children do not know what is best for them. That is why they require guidance from their elders. Lady Ashworth turned to the Duke with her most sympathetic expression. I know you have been distracted by your grief, Your Grace. It is only natural that standards have slipped. But surely you can see that this situation cannot continue. The Duke looked at me, really looked at me, for perhaps the first time since I had arrived at Thornwood. And I saw him make a decision. Miss Pemberton, your services are no longer required. You will pack your things and leave by sunset. I tried to explain. I tried to defend myself, to show him the work we had accomplished, to make him understand that his children were thriving under my care in ways they had never thrived before. He would not listen. Lady Ashworth had poisoned his mind thoroughly, and my protests only seemed to confirm her narrative, the desperate governess clinging to a position above her station, refusing to accept that her unconventional methods were harmful. The children were worse. Rosalind screamed at her father, calling him blind and stupid and unfair. Felix wept and begged, clinging to my skirts and refusing to let go. Their behavior only reinforced Lady Ashworth's claims that I had spoiled them, made them emotional and disobedient. Take them to their rooms, the Duke ordered the footman. They will remain there until Miss Pemberton has departed. Father, please. Rosalind's voice broke as she was pulled away. Please do not send her away. Please. The door closed on her cries. I was given 1 hour to pack my belongings. I moved through my small room in a daze, folding clothes and gathering books, my mind racing through possibilities. Could I appeal to someone? Write to the children's grandmother, who lived in Bath and rarely visited. Contact the family solicitor, who might have some influence over the Duke's decisions. None of it would work. I was a governess, a servant. I had no rights, no recourse, no power to challenge the Duke's authority in his own household. The children were not mine. They had never been mine. And now I would never see them again. I did not know they had escaped. The footman had been given strict instructions to keep them in their rooms until I was gone. But the footman did not know about the servants' passages that ran through the house, passages that Rosalind had discovered months ago and had been exploring ever since. She had mapped every route, every hidden door, every way to move through the manor without being seen. It was a game we played together, a way of teaching her spatial reasoning and observation skills. I had never imagined she would use it for this. While I was packing, Rosalind was gathering supplies. While I was saying goodbye to the few servants who had been kind to me, Felix was filling a small bag with bread and cheese stolen from the kitchen. While I was walking down the long stone driveway, my heart breaking with every step, they were slipping through a side door and following at a distance, waiting for the right moment to make their move. And now we were here. The Duke was striding toward us, his face a mask of fury. Lady Ashworth trailed behind him, her expression triumphant even as she feigned concern. "How dare you?" the Duke snarled at me. "How dare you convince my children to run away?" She did not convince us of anything. Rosalind stepped in front of me, her small body positioned protectively. "We made this choice ourselves. You dismissed Miss Pemberton because Lady Ashworth told you lies, and we will not stay in a house where lies are rewarded and love is punished. You are 9 years old. You do not understand. I understand that you have not read to us in 2 years. I understand that you did not know my favorite book or Felix's favorite game or anything about our lives until Miss Pemberton made us feel like we mattered. I understand that Lady Ashworth wants to marry you and she knew she could not do it while we loved someone else more than we could ever love her." The Duke stared at his daughter, speechless. "We are not possessions," Rosalind continued, her voice shaking but strong. "We are your children. And if you cannot see how wonderful Miss Pemberton is, if you would rather believe a woman who has known us 6 months over someone who has loved us for 2 years, then you do not deserve to be our father." "Rosalind." "No." She grabbed my hand with one hand and Felix's with the other. "We are leaving. And you cannot stop us." Of course he could stop us. He was a duke, with an army of servants at his command. We did not make it 10 steps before footmen surrounded us, gently but firmly preventing any further escape. But something had shifted in the Duke's expression. The fury was still there, but it was mixed with something else now. Confusion. Doubt. The first faint stirrings of self-awareness. "Take the children inside," he said quietly. "But do not lock them in their rooms. Take them to the nursery, and stay with them until I come." "Your Grace," Lady Ashworth began. "Not now, Cordelia." His voice was ice. "I need to speak with Miss Pemberton. Alone." She opened her mouth to protest, then thought better of it. Her triumphant expression had begun to crack. The Duke led me to his study, a room I had entered perhaps twice in 2 years, always briefly, always with the children. It was dark and masculine, filled with books he had clearly never read and portraits of ancestors who stared down with uniform disapproval. He closed the door behind us. "Tell me what just happened." "Your Grace." My children attempted to run away from home rather than lose their governess. My 9-year-old daughter just delivered a speech that would have done credit to a barrister. My 7-year-old son was prepared to walk out into the world with nothing but a bag of stolen bread and complete faith in a woman I have just dismissed. He sank into a chair, looking suddenly exhausted. "Explain this to me. Because I confess I do not understand it." I took a breath. "Your children love me, Your Grace. And I love them. That is all there is to understand. Love." He said the word as if it were foreign. "You have known them 2 years. I have known them every day of those 2 years. I have read to them every night. I have comforted them through nightmares and celebrated their victories and sat with them through their sorrows. I have taught them that they are worthy of attention, worthy of care, worthy of being truly seen." I met his eyes. "Can you say the same?" His jaw tightened. "I have been grieving. I know. I have watched you grieve for 2 years, Your Grace. I have watched you close yourself away, refusing to engage with anything that might remind you of what you lost. I have watched you abandon your children to a parade of strangers because looking at them hurt too much. My voice softened. I am not without sympathy. I understand that losing your wife was devastating. But your children lost their mother. And then they lost their father too, to a grief he could not control. That is not. It is precisely what happened. You are alive, Your Grace, but you have not been present. And in your absence, I became their parent. I gave them what you could not give. And now you are taking that away because a woman who wants to marry you has convinced you that my methods are improper. He was silent for a long moment. Lady Ashworth has concerns. Lady Ashworth has ambitions. She does not care about your children except as obstacles to her goal. She sees their attachment to me as a threat because it leaves no room for her to position herself as their substitute mother. I stepped closer to his desk. Ask yourself, Your Grace. In the 6 months Lady Ashworth has been visiting, how many times has she read to your children? How many games has she played with them? How many tears has she comforted? He did not answer. Now ask yourself the same questions about me. He did not reinstate me immediately. Instead, he did something I had not expected. He asked questions. Not to Lady Ashworth, but to the servants, the footmen and maids and cooks who had watched me with his children for 2 years. He asked what they had observed, what they thought of my methods, whether they believed I was good for Rosalind and Felix. The answers were unanimous. Mrs. Blackwood, the housekeeper, told him that the children had been transformed under my care. From wild, angry creatures into curious, joyful learners. Mr. Hughes, the butler, described the elaborate educational games I invented and the genuine excitement the children showed for their lessons. Even the footmen admitted that they enjoyed watching us, that our laughter brightened the house in ways it had not been bright for years. And then he spoke to the children. I do not know what Rosalind and Felix told him during that long conversation. I only know that when he emerged from the nursery, his face was pale and his eyes were red-rimmed. He found me in the kitchen, where the cook had taken pity on me and offered me tea while I waited to learn my fate. Miss Pemberton, will you walk with me? We walked through the gardens where I had conducted my Latin treasure hunt. The afternoon light was fading, casting long shadows across paths that I knew as well as my own face. My daughter told me something today that I did not know, the Duke said quietly. She told me that her mother used to sing to her before bed. A specific song, something about a sailing ship and a golden shore. She said she had forgotten the tune until you taught it to her again. I nodded slowly. I learned it from my own mother. It is a common nursery song. Rosalind said that when you sang it, she remembered her mother for the first time in years. She said the memory made her happy instead of sad. His voice cracked. I have spent 7 years trying to protect my children from their grief. I removed every portrait of their mother, stopped speaking of her, created a household where her absence was the only constant. I thought I was sparing them pain. You were sparing yourself. Yes. The admission came out raw. I see that now. I was so consumed by my own grief that I did not notice theirs. I did not see that they needed to remember her, to talk about her, to know that her loss was not something to be hidden but something to be mourned and eventually healed. They are resilient children. They have been waiting for you to see them. And instead I saw only what Lady Ashworth wanted me to see. A governess overstepping her bounds. Children who needed discipline rather than love. A household that required order rather than joy. He stopped walking and turned to face me. I have been a fool. Yes. You have. He almost smiled at my bluntness. You do not soften your words. You have had enough soft words from Lady Ashworth. What you need is truth. I held his gaze. Your children are remarkable, Your Grace. They are intelligent, compassionate, brave, and fiercely loyal. Everything good in them has been there from the beginning, I merely helped them see it. But they need more than a governess. They need a father. I do not know how to be a father. Then learn. The same way you learned everything else in your life. By paying attention. By being present. By making mistakes and trying again. I softened my voice. They want to love you. They have always wanted to love you. You just have to let them. I stayed. Not just as the governess, but as something more, an advisor, a confidant, a bridge between the Duke and the children he was only beginning to know. Lady Ashworth departed within the week, her schemes exposed, her ambitions thwarted. The household breathed a collective sigh of relief. And slowly, painfully, beautifully, the Duke of Thornwood learned to be a father. He started reading to the children at night. Awkwardly at first, stumbling over words and losing his place. But Rosalind and Felix did not care about his technique. They cared that he was there, sitting beside their beds, his voice filling the darkness where before there had been only silence. He joined our lessons, sitting quietly in the corner while I taught, asking questions that showed genuine curiosity about what his children were learning. He walked with us in the gardens, played our educational games, discovered that Felix had a gift for mathematics and Rosalind had a passion for history. He learned their favorite foods, their secret fears, their wildest dreams. He learned the sound of their laughter and the shape of their tears. He learned that being a parent was not about control or discipline or preparation for adulthood, it was about showing up, day after day, and proving through action that they mattered. "You have given me my family back," he told me one evening, as we watched the children chase fireflies across the lawn. "You always had them. You just needed someone to remind you. That someone was you." He turned to face me, his expression serious. "I cannot imagine this household without you, Miss Pemberton. I cannot imagine these children growing up without your guidance. And I find that I cannot imagine my own life without your presence in it. Your grace. Christopher. Please. After everything, surely we can dispense with formality. Christopher." I tested the name, felt its unfamiliar weight on my tongue. "What are you saying?" "I am saying that I would like you to stay. Not as their governess, not only as their governess, but as..." He struggled for words. "As part of this family. Permanently. You are proposing marriage. I am proposing partnership. Whatever form that takes, whatever terms you require, I want you here. The children need you. I need you." His voice dropped. "I have spent so long refusing to feel anything that I forgot what it was like to care about someone. You reminded me. And I find that I care about you rather more than I expected. This is very sudden. Is it? I have watched you love my children for 2 years. I have watched you fight for them, sacrifice for them, refuse to abandon them even when I gave you every reason to walk away. If that is not courtship, I do not know what is." He took my hand. "I am not asking you to love me yet. I am asking you to give me the chance to earn it." I made him wait 6 months. Not because I doubted his sincerity, but because I wanted to be certain. I wanted to know that his transformation was real, that he would not revert to his old patterns when the novelty wore off. I wanted to see him be a father, consistently and genuinely, before I agreed to become anything more. He accepted my terms without complaint. He continued to show up for his children, to participate in their lives, to build the relationships he had neglected for so long. He courted me quietly, with respect and patience, never pressuring me for more than I was ready to give. And somewhere along the way, I fell in love with him. Not with the Duke of Thornwood, the title meant nothing to me. But with Christopher Blackwell, the man who had finally found the courage to feel again. The father who read bedtime stories in silly voices and played pirates in the garden. The widower who could finally speak his late wife's name without flinching, who had hung her portrait back in the morning room where the children could see it every day. That man I could love. That man I wanted to build a life with. We were married in the spring, in the garden where I had once conducted my ill-fated Latin treasure hunt. Rosalind was my flower girl, scattering petals with theatrical enthusiasm. Felix was his father's best man, standing solemnly beside him with a ring balanced carefully on a velvet pillow. When Christopher kissed me, our children cheered. Not my students. Our children. 20 years after I walked down that stone driveway with my bags, I stood at the nursery window and watched my grandchildren play in the garden below. Rosalind had grown into a formidable woman. A barrister, one of the first women to argue cases before the courts, her copper hair still escaping from its pins as she battled for justice. She had married a man who adored her brilliance, and they had 3 children who had inherited her fierce determination. Felix had become a scholar, translating ancient texts and teaching at Oxford. His gentle nature had found its perfect expression in academia, where he inspired students with the same patience and creativity I had once shown him. His wife was a poet, and their children filled our house with verse and laughter. And Christopher, my husband, my partner, my unexpected love, was beside me still. "You are thinking about the driveway," he said, wrapping his arms around me from behind. "I am thinking about the children. How they followed me. How they chose me over everything they knew. They chose love. It was always that simple. Nothing about that day was simple. I was terrified. I did not know what would happen, what I could offer them, how any of it would work out. And yet here we are. 20 years of marriage. 2 remarkable children who became remarkable adults. Grandchildren who will carry your lessons forward into a world we cannot imagine. He kissed my temple. All because you refused to leave them behind. I could not have left them. Even before they came running after me, I could not have simply walked away. They were my heart. And now they are my legacy. The kindness we taught them, the courage we showed them, the love we proved was possible, they will pass all of that to their own children, and their children's children. That is worth more than any title, any fortune, any position in society. You transformed this family. We transformed it together. All of us, stumbling forward, making mistakes, trying again. I turned to face him. That is what I would tell any governess, any mother, any person who wonders if what they are doing matters. It matters. Every lesson, every bedtime story, every moment of genuine presence. It all matters. The nursery door opened, and a small voice called out, "Grandmother, will you tell us the story? The one about running away?" I smiled at my grandson, Felix's youngest, with his father's gentle eyes and his aunt's fierce spirit. "Come here, little one. Let me tell you about the day your grandmother walked down a very long driveway, believing she had lost everything she loved, and about the 2 brave children who refused to let her go alone." He climbed into my lap, his siblings following, arranging themselves around my chair with the practiced ease of children who knew they were about to hear their favorite story. And I began. The Duke dismissed the governess his heirs loved. But he did not know, could not know, that those children had already made a plan. Subscribe to see what happens next, and comment where you're watching from. I would love to say hello to you, just to know how far our story is reaching across the world.